everybody. This is our next episode of Nerding Out, and as you can tell, we're one short, unfortunately. 'Tis the holiday season, 4th of July to be exact, so we don't have the whole crew, but that's okay.
Holiday season doesn't sound right. It sounds like Christmas when I hear holiday.
Christmas in July.
It doesn't feel like Christmas out there.
In July.
It's hot.
It's hot. It's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot. Anywho, welcome to the next episode of Nerding Out. So by now, the latest episode, there's 2 episodes of Stranger Things, season 4.2 has come out, and we're not doing anything about that show, only for the fact that it's on Netflix. Just came out this weekend, 2.5 hours long for the last episode, so if you've got the time, I definitely suggest watching it. Someone here has not watched it all the way, but they do know some about it. But at this point, once you finish watching Stranger Things, what now? What's next? So we're going to discuss the top 5 shows of all time on Netflix by hours watched, not the rated, but by hours watched, and then saying what we like on Netflix and what we think is worth watching so that you have something to watch after you do your Stranger Things. Because if you're like us, you only do it monthly at a time, whenever something important's on. So, to start this off, you haven't seen everything that's on the top 5 list, but I did my research, and I will let you know what I think of some of these things. But you have seen actually a pretty good amount. So, number 1, and again, remember, these are by hours watched. So, this does not say like how many awards it's won, how many like the ratings on it and everything. It could be 5 stars, it could be 2 stars, but the world has watched it the most. So, number 1, of course, on the list. Can you guess what it is?
Stranger Things.
No.
Or Squid Games.
Squid Games.
Yeah, I forgot that was the biggest thing.
Squid
It was good,
Games.
though.
It was very good. So definitely, number 1, I can't remember the exact amounts on there, but it was in the billions of hours watched, and it was the only one on the list that made it into the billions of hours watched. So, Squid Games, I thought, like, of course, all of the foreign films, I think, people tend to stray to because it is something different. It's a different atmosphere, it's a different thought process, because a lot of things that they would say over here are not the same over there. Duh. But Squid Games was something unique and new, kind of like Hunger Games, but on a much larger scale with kid games. I thought it was very much worth it. I thought that the actors on it did really, really well. I really, really loved the main guy on there, except at the end when he dyed his hair red. I thought he looked really weird. And I understand why he did it, but it's just still
to lash out and be
it's like,
brash.
You know what? Fine, I've got this money. I earned it, so let's spend it. And he got his hair done so he could go see his daughter. If he would have had it cut, that would have been fine. But instead, he made it that really weird cranberry red, and I was like, okay, it's whatever.
You know, honestly, it kind of feels realistic, though, because like when you dye your hair for the first time, you have no idea what the hell you want, and you just get all weird and not what you need.
What's the color that's cool this year?
Red!
Well, the cranberry color. You know what? Just go for it.
No, they'd be like, I want red. Well, we're all out of that, but we do have cranberry. Do it.
It's like, let's just do it. Don't even let me second guess myself.
Cranberry.
It's the cranberry color. He looked very festive for the holiday season. Number 2 on the list, and I will admit right now, is not my cup of tea. But because of the show, I watched it. Bridgerton. Number 2 on the list. I think it was like 752 million hours watched, something like that. And it's only got 2 seasons. I know they're working on a 3rd one, but 2 seasons and they've already watched like hundreds of millions of hours of the show. It's kind of like your Jane Austen type film.
I'm an expert on this. I watched like maybe a conglomerate an episode of that show, and Jane Austen.
Expert on this?
Yes, I'm not. I just made it up because my grandmother, everybody's grandmother read those books. You're saying Jane Austen, but my great grandma was religious to that because our little tiny library where I used to live at, she rented every book possible in the romance section there, read all of them, and then we had to start getting ones from other libraries for her. She did not want to stop. She lived to be 98 years old, so she was with us from like 92 to 94, I believe. So
you're an expert on romance books.
No,
Yes, I see how it is.
but yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I normally, I had to watch Pride and Prejudice whenever I was in high school. I had to read the Jane Austen books and stuff like that. personally, it's not my cup of tea, but I'm also not the type of person that kind of likes the romantic stuff. But I watched a couple of episodes of Bridgerton, and it was in the background of me doing other things, and I ended up having to stop doing my main thing and moving on and watching just the show. It's actually pretty good, and the farther it gets into it, the more you see it's actually got some twists to it and stuff. So I actually very much enjoyed it. I'm watching the second season now as we speak, and I'm not ashamed of it. It is a guilty pleasure. The third one on the list,
Definitely stress the pleasure. Every time I walked in the living room, there was a sex scene, pretty much.
Not every time.
I mean, there was one
Most
point
of
they
the
were trying to
time.
shoot each other, but past that, there's some kind of shooting going on.
Sex, shooting, sex.
Yeah.
You need to watch it. You don't know what you're talking about. There's so much to it. So much.
It's beautiful that I don't know everything about that show, so I can judge it from the outside, having no idea
It's like
what
those
anything
people
is.
on Reddit that are like, I've never read a Harry Potter book in my life. Tell me to explain it.
Yeah.
But third on the list,
It's just a big British porno.
it's a big British porno. The third on the list, I unfortunately could not get into, so I did not finish watching it. And it's not because it's in a foreign language, but it did kind of hinder me from really paying very close attention because I have to dedicate my time to watch it, so it was kind of hard. That was the Money Heist show, and I mean, there's different variations of it now. Like there was Americas and stuff like that on there, so it's popular enough to have its own like extra seasons. It's like has little like what are they spin-offs and stuff like that. So I mean, it's got to be great. I'm not dissing it, but it's one of the things that did not end up being like Bridgerton, to where it's not my cup of tea, and I ended up watching the whole thing. I didn't end up watching it.
Not every show can get naked every season, so.
I mean, that's what it takes for me to get into it, you know? Yeah, all the naked seasons, yeah. Number 4, Stranger Things, of course. Made in our own little hometown of Indiana. Home state of Indiana.
Yes, Indiana as a whole is just one of those like small towns, bigger than average town, but not big enough to be called a city. So it's just like a bunch of those random little towns. And then there's a bunch of little tiny towns, like 500 people.
We are the town state of the United States.
We are the townspeople.
The townspeople.
Whole new meaning.
So Stranger Things ends up being at number 4, and I know that a lot of people, like, it's been number 1 for quite some time since the first part of season 4 came out, and then Umbrella Academy came out with their latest season. I think season 3 is what that one's on. And a lot of people were like, oh look, it's already surpassed Stranger Things. Like, give it time. Part 2 comes out, and it is now number 1 again, with Umbrella Academy being number 2 this week. So Stranger Things, I think it definitely is worth watching, even if you don't like the mystery, weird, like, I don't want to say sci-fi, but just kind of like that, what do you call it?
It's
psychological
thriller.
Thriller, yeah.
Psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Driller.
With D&D.
No, that's Bridgerton.
Why? Why all the sex jokes? It's not all
Because-
about sex.
It's not all about sex, but almost every episode had sex in it. Yeah. Ding.
You're not wrong. I'm just sitting here thinking, it's like, wait, no, there wasn't that one. Yeah. I mean, what else do you have to do back in those days? 1700s, you don't have much to do. So, there you go.
I mean, you had like Beethoven stuff to listen to here and
Yeah,
there.
over on the opposite, well, they were
Well,
in like the London area,
Yeah,
I think so.
I mean, well, London, England, but still, I mean, it wasn't as if just because he was in Germany you couldn't hear it.
True as that may be, like, they went to balls, they went to parties, and
They
like,
definitely went to balls. I'm not gonna let this go. Anyways, we should move on. I've got them coming. I've got these jokes strong.
Number 5 on the list was actually a surprise to me because it wasn't originally a Netflix show, but they ended up buying it, I think, after the 5th season was canceled on TV, which was Lucifer. I watched the first season just to give it a chance because it has been something that's been on my list of things to watch, but I never had an opportunity to watch it when it was on TV. It's not bad. I feel like the Lucifer that they're putting on there, they're putting way too much emphasis on I don't care about the world, but then they'll have him care a little bit too much. And then, like, within the first 3 episodes, they were like, you've changed, Lucifer, you're a changed man. It's like, it's 3 episodes in.
You've changed. You changed. You changed.
He changed. Like, okay, we put emphasis on he's changed.
I mean, it's just it's more a decision on like style, the writing style of the show, because I've seen bits and pieces of it. One thing I noticed was it's that generic, like, everybody thinks I'm stupid, but I'm actually a badass type thing. Really common scene everybody sees, if you've seen like bits and pieces online, is the scene where they're sword fighting. So that one where he kind of makes a fool of the other fighter. I don't know the names, so I don't unfortunately know who he's fighting, but he just kind of walks into the little dojo and just says, hey, I'll fight whoever, and beats him royally. And it's just kind of like, I get kind of tired of some of those shows eventually, because it's always that same story. It's a very common story of like the underdog, which is actually not an underdog. He's actually somebody very special. But from what I've seen of it, though,
I mean, he's special because he's Lucifer.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a billion stories like that. I mean, tons of anime, tons of Hollywood movies, tons of Bollywood movies. There's so many things like that. There's an underdog. That's the whole point. Everybody likes the underdog, but I mean, why else would Hoosier, the movie, be out there? So,
I didn't talk about Hoosier.
Yeah, but
it's another one of those Indiana movies.
Yeah, but like, that's what it feels like, just another one of those, because I would rather watch shows that I think were more tasteful, at least for certain seasons, were like oh my god, Sam and Dean, Supernatural, because that one was like, I feel that they didn't find out they were special too much later, but they weren't an underdog, they were just under everything. They were pretty much two humans that got pretty smart and fought demons and stuff. Or if you want to even go along that same vein, The Devil is a Part-Timer is even more hilarious if you like anime, because that one, similar idea, like he's quote-unquote the underdog, but at no point does he really act like an underdog.
Exactly. That one's all pretty much comedy, where he's just trying to survive on like Earth. It's like, I need a job for money.
Yeah.
Why can't I just do this? Like, 'cause you can't do that, Satan. You have to actually like pay for things.
Personally, like I said, I watched bits of it and it was okay, but it didn't seem like anything great to me. But that was number 5, right?
That was number 5.
Well, technically, like, you're right about Stranger Things. The last part of it's probably going to overtake, but official numbers from Netflix, Umbrella Academy season 3 is still by far the top.
Really?
It doesn't count this actual week though. So the farthest they would go up to for official numbers, it starts at June 26th, which was after, well before the Stranger Things Part 2 came out.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is absolutely going to blow it out of the water.
Yeah, I see that now. That's still showing Umbrella Academy as number 1.
But yeah, it's because Part 2 hadn't come out on this list. It goes from June 20th through 26th. And so I've not seen anything of Umbrella Academy. All I can think of, though, when I hear of Umbrella,
is Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
Every single time. That's the only reason I have not watched the show, is because like I see what it's about and I think that it's a very cool concept, but every time I see the Umbrella Academy, I think it's a Resident Evil thing, and then I get disappointed that it's not, so I haven't watched it yet. But that actually brings up to our next part of this is, there's a top 5 under any genre, under any certain like stats and things like that. Like I said, ours was based on the hours watched. But that doesn't tell you what's really good out there, because they may have never seen, like, what was that? Not Bill and Ted, but the horror movie that was not a horror movie. It was a comedy where it was the two guys that they thought were trying to kill them. And
I don't remember. You remember that one much better. I forget the name.
But I mean, like, movies like that, and the Cthulhu movie that was out there. It was just a random one called H.P. Lovecraft. And I thought to myself, okay, that one looks kind of dumb, but I'm going to give it a try. And it was the best one that I had found that was just on random. It's like peanut butter horror and all of that stuff. Like, all of my jokes come from these things. But there are some great shows on Netflix that are not on the top 5 lists. And so for us, we've kind of gotten together and looked to see what our favorite ones are and kind of talk about them and why we think you should give them a try if you haven't already. So I unfortunately have gone down a rabbit hole in the past week after finishing, or we got Netflix so that we could watch Stranger Things Season 4 Part 2. But I mean, if you've got it, you might as well watch other things, and I don't know why.
Yeah, we're the cheap asses. We just get 1 month and then quit paying for it.
I mean, I'm not going to pay for something that there's nothing to watch on if I've already watched it.
I mean, there's billions of things to watch on Netflix.
I know, and I do it in that 1 month. I binge, you guys. I binge. I think I've already explained on an episode about comic books where I started to read comics and I read like 2,000 or 3,000 in the 2 months that I had the subscription because I wanted all the knowledge in my brain. I binge watch. So I've gotten down the path of crimes, like true crime and like investigations and things like that. I have watched so many murder documentaries. Like, I'm starting to dream about them in my sleep and how much I'm going to die from them. Like, if I were to get killed by Ted Bundy, how would it go down type deal. But I if you're into those types of things, which not trying to point out specific groups of people, but women usually tend to be into the true crime thing more than men. Definitely check out the Ted Bundy tapes one, because that one actually is really freaking good, and that's what started my obsession of going down this list. But that one's a good one. But as far as like good quality stuff there's something for everyone. I know you don't sit down and watch a lot of shows like a lot of the time, but what would you recommend for somebody that's trying to watch something after that?
Something after
For
Stranger
Netflix.
Things?
For Netflix.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, mine is not for Netflix. I'm still going to highlight it because I'm actually going to ask any viewers that watch this a question. It had some weird points that were kind of slow and was not nearly as interesting, but I miss it because they're not doing a season 2 of this. Lovecraft Country. Lovecraft Country was actually pretty good, and it wasn't full on into the horror just yet. It started getting into it with some of the scary things you saw, but I really wanted to go much more into that. I know there was some controversy around it. I didn't really get into it too much. I liked the show, didn't get into much of it afterwards, but they didn't go forward with a season 2. I don't know if it's because the viewership was down or what, but I wish they would do a season 2 of Lovecraft Country. And it is very similar in the same vein of like Stranger Things. It is set back in a previous time, a little bit farther back. It deals obviously a lot more on kind of the times back then. It was a lot worse for most people. Segregation was still a thing in this show, so it was really hard for someone to navigate around parts of that. And of course, Lovecraft himself, he was a very racist man, and we all admit that. He made some very interesting stories, though, the horror stories and the creatures he came up with. But I would love to see maybe a season 2 of this, and I just don't think it's going to happen, apparently. They said it won't happen, but, sometimes they might bring stuff back. I'm just afraid it won't.
I mean, Lucifer came back via Netflix.
Yeah.
They canceled that.
Hey, maybe they'll bring Netflix. That'd be nice, because it would fit so well with Stranger Things. The fact that Stranger Things is much more based on D&D, but D&D is very closely related to H.P. Lovecraft.
Yes.
And
Lord
of the Rings, but the monsters, this terrifying stuff,
Yeah.
the psychic, pretty much anything psychic based is going to be like H.P. Lovecraftian.
You're right.
But I feel like it fits very well with like the Demogorgon, the quote unquote Mind Flayer. It was Smoke Monster, whatever you want to call it, but stuff like that. I think it would fit pretty well if you like that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it still should be on HBO, but if you ask me what's a good one to go to afterwards, that one. Like I said, it had a couple points. It did kind of get pretty slow when they started doing the car ride. When he got back to his hometown and then going to the car ride. I mean, that's not a spoiler. I'm not going to tell you anything else.
Just in case, spoilers.
No, there's no spoilers. I'm good at that.
I'm not.
Spoilers. I know you're not. But he goes back to his hometown at one point, and they go on a car ride. It's like, it got interesting at the end of that episode, but it's like, it was kind of boring. So there's some parts, but I don't know. That's my suggestion. Now, what would be yours? Post.
So you went completely in a different way that I didn't even think you would bring something like that up. Now, even though it's HBO, I would hope it doesn't get bought out by Netflix, only for the fact that Netflix has a history of starting projects, really thinking that they're going to do well with it, and then just like finishing or canceling it. So like Cowboy Bebop, fight me on this. I know there's about a bunch of fanboys on this, but fight me. It wasn't that good. It was a completely different outtake on Cowboy Bebop, which is great if you want to say like it's a different version and all that stuff. But the thing is, I love the actor that played Spike Spiegel. I think he played him in a great way, except for one thing that could have really made it feel better. And I feel like there was a guy on TikTok that made this point, and it's not the actor's fault, because it's you can't, the fight scenes, like, you can't say like, oh well, he should have done better on that. No, choreographer should have done better research on
we can't just blame any one particular person because we weren't there. We assume that it might be like the choreographer, but it may have been like a director's choice. Maybe the choreographer and the actor was like, I want to do this, but he's like, no, it has to be like this to keep a slower pace, maybe because he thought it was good.
He was
but
way too stiff.
Yeah,
he should have been much more like, it was Bruce Lee that he was out on after.
I think, honestly, the reason why is whoever decided and coordinated some of the stuff, because I don't know, because even just the choreographer doesn't have the final say on anything, the directors do, and there's even people in between the directors that have says between stuff. I think it was just a conflict of interest where some people saw the anime or just thought they knew about anime, and some parts of the anime fight scenes can seem stiff, and like, the moves end, like, it's not like a real world fighting. It's very rarely any time you stop motion. Like, you don't actually stop moving. You're always moving something. Mm-hmm. But in anime, just because it's very expensive and hard to animate every single movement possible, they usually have ends. The movement stops in like a punch. That's it. Or, a kick stops in a kick. And if you looked at his way he fought, he did the same thing. He's like, ha, ah. It stopped.
I'm going to counter that, though, because Cowboy Bebop was one of them that didn't do that. They did very smooth movements.
It did, but if you look at most scenes, whenever he does a swing or whatever, he still has those stops, those small gaps.
It's animation, but
exactly,
the actual,
it was limited.
Thought process though was that he was fighting like Bruce Lee, which was very smooth, and he also jumped a lot, and he had a lot of like very flamboyant like movements and whatnot.
That's why I love the show.
That I had with the video, like the live action version of that though, was because he wasn't there. He wasn't doing it for show. He wasn't having fun while he was fighting. He wasn't like telling him like come at me and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. He was just there to fight. Like, he was punching and everything. He was there to fight. No playfulness, no nothing. Yeah. And that's not the Spike Spiegel way. Like, he is very much just like a very
having fun with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
He just does not give a crap about anything. He is just there having fun.
Now, one thing I'd also kind of mention that I think that live action versions of video games, anime, just books in general, whatever it be, I think that there can be some good ones that have been made and that will be made, but in my opinion, something that would help, I think, the directors and the story writers for the shows or movies that they make, and also make it much easier for people to get into the vein of like, I want to get into this world because I love the original, but let's go something new and different, is if they never included the main cast characters. Because that's...
But then what's the point of doing a live action version? Because
you can imagine, like, let's just say Full Metal Alchemist, because that's another live action that's been not well received either. But
I don't know. I mean, apparently there's another one coming out, and they're floored over in Japan.
It's pretty rough in some ways.
To be fair, Japan, they didn't have the voice actors like dubbing over, and that was the problem that we had.
But imagine if you could set yourself in the world as an alternate set of characters, or on the other side of the world with a different story, and slowly bring in like other people from it, maybe, but never have them as the main characters, because two reasons. It's the same reason why Valve never makes a third game. Because they take too long, and your expectations are so high. Because the Spike Spiegel is, Stephen J. Bloom, you cannot replace his voice with anyone. And the character, the way he works, it's almost impossible to do with, because it's animation. You can do anything with animation. You can do a lot with CGI nowadays too, but I feel it's just, the animation was so good in its own artistic way, it's better than reality. That's the thing. Like, video games and shows that are animated can be better than reality because you can do things that are physically impossible to do otherwise.
See, I think nowadays technology is, we are going way off the topic here, like shows to watch, but what not to watch, I guess you could say too. Like the Full Metal Alchemist one. They do CG into that and everything to make it worth it. What killed the Full Metal Alchemist movie was not the artisticness of it, was not the fact that it was live action compared to animation. It was the dub.
I think that's still somewhat wrong for me because it looks well. It's like a lot of the live animated like or live action versions of stuff I've seen is the thing that always kills me is the look. It just doesn't look right either.
I'm gonna fight you on that one too. Rurouni Kenshin. The movies are excellent. Those
they put
did a
their heart and
great
soul into
job.
it. They put their heart and soul into that much more than most.
Oh, I know. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, there's a reason
But,
why that succeeds.
Like Full Metal Alchemist, it's an okay film, especially if you've seen the show. My big thing is whenever you see it's Vic Mignogna who does the dub over on Edward, which he played him in the show. So I mean, what better person to play that? But I don't know if they had them like doing it at home and they didn't just like try to do noise cancellation or anything, but whenever you see the character pop up on the screen and they dub over him, you hear, "All right, well, I guess it's time to fight." Like, where are you at? What are you doing right now? Like,
He's talking into his phone.
Like, well, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they recorded it while he was talking on the phone with them, or like someplace where it just echoes, and it sounds like he's got a pillow over his mouth. It's like, how did you okay all of this? Like, they should have had him send something just to see if he was doing it at home because of COVID and all that. Like, all right, well, what kind of quality stuff do you have here?
They probably got the budget version of him. Because, I mean, he's going to charge a pretty penny for that. So he's probably like,
I don't know. He doesn't have a lot to do anymore since they did those
this is why he'll still charge a penny.
Either way, there are some shows not to watch, which ones we unfortunately have said. I think they're still good in their own right. But as far as adaptations and stuff like that, you can do it right.
And as
but
a
it's
disclaimer,
a very slippery slope when you try.
and as a disclaimer too, this is yet again our opinions. I personally have not liked most live action things from video games or animation, just because it just doesn't do it justice. And while I agree that I would love to see more video games or things come forward and kind of get into other kinds of media, that most of the time I wish they would pick like the Halo series. I liked it.
It was different. It
was good.
A whole different route.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. But I still kind of wish it wasn't made at the same time, because I 100% feel for most fans. They're like, oh, he shouldn't have his helmet off all the time, like from almost the beginning. But at the same time, I'm glad they did it early, because there's such a stigma behind him not taking off his helmet. It would have been... They could have never showed his face whatsoever in the show if that was the case. So they just got it out of the way early, apparently. But it was still not... Overall, I kind of just wish they would either wait till they bring out something really good like Rurouni Kenshin, type of thing, or just not do it at all sometimes.
Well, watch out, world, because the next one that Netflix is on their way to do is One Piece. Good luck. There's like 1,000 episodes of that.
Yeah,
And
I honestly, unless they blow me away with it, like with the quality and the story of it, I just don't see. I mean, obviously the number one thing is Luffy. That's going to be so much CGI.
It's Luffy.
This, I like Luffy. There's
Yeah, but see, that's
so
the WB
much
version, and
yeah.
nobody wants the WB version. Gotta go. Don't give it up, Luffy dreaming.
I don't see how it's going to be possible, though. I mean, they may make it good. It's just they cannot make it as good as the original show. And that's another thing. It's been out for forever, and it's been going for a long time. I think time is a...
Cruel mistress.
Yes. I think the longer they wait to do these things, it makes it worse. Because if it's something
because
like...
the fans are getting older, and people that get older get cranky. We don't like things being done the wrong way.
We do get cranky. We do get cranky.
Netflix, you're doing it wrong.
But it also puts those rose-tinted glasses on. If things have been in the past for long enough, you start to kind of remember it better than it was sometimes. And it's like, it was like Cowboy Bebop. It was one of the best anime ever made, but it's not necessarily always the best for every person. There are some people that are going to say Berserk is the best one ever made. Some people will say the Dragon Ball is the best one ever made. Some people will say other ones.
I disagree wholeheartedly on anyone who says any of those. Because my favorite of all time, it will always, if you can't tell, is Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
Hands down. Love it. Will not say that's the one to watch if you're trying to get into anime. The one I will say to watch is Cowboy Bebop.
That's because there's so many different things to like. Are you looking
Music,
for...
the fighting, the story.
Are you looking for overall the best, which maybe Cowboy Bebop would win in? Are you looking for maybe the best music?
This has turned out to be an anime video instead. Sorry,
Yes,
Netflix.
it has been. You got me started.
I didn't get you started, but go
We
on.
start talking about renditions. But personally, like I said, this is our opinion, so don't murder us for this, please. Yeah, it has an opinion. Don't listen to her. I think I don't know, but I just feel like
Girl, I throw punches.
I feel that they've really Hollywoodified Cowboy Bebop in the end.
I agree with that, but
But that is its
unfortunately,
only demise.
I don't think it was its only demise. But I don't think it should have been canceled. I think they should have given it one more season at least, because the most like important character to have was Ed on there, and they waited till the very end of season 1 to do Ed, and they should have been in that from the very beginning. Like it was probably like it was like halfway through the series when Ed popped up into the show. But they were a huge part of the show because they were super smart. Like it was a kid, and like the dog
Got underestimated all the time.
Yeah, like it was Ein's best friend. So
Yeah.
like you should have had it
And
in there.
and a hot take for some people. I don't know. Most people didn't like it. I think her character intro and the way she looked, the camera angles, all of that fit. It was not perfect to the anime, but it was pretty close. But it was perfect to the 1990s is when it came out.
The only problem I have was that like when they showed Ed, they were talking about them being like something like, oh, you're the bounty hunter person, and like I have a bounty for you. That's not how they were in the show. They were not in that world at that point. Either way, like they're not going to give it enough time to make it, see if it was going to go and get better in the second season. So unfortunately, I think Cowboy Bebop is worth it just to watch, but if you are a fan of Cowboy Bebop, I think it's a miss. I think it's the same thing as like Death Note. It's incredibly
You know, that's so funny. Like, this is why I say things would be better off if it wasn't using the exact same characters, but maybe in the same universe. Death Note, the show, was okay. Wasn't the worst thing ever if the anime never existed. If it was its own standalone show, it would have been a pretty interesting idea, because the whole idea of Death Note is the notebook that you can write somebody's name into and it kills them. That's just the cool aspect of it. And then what power it would give, and then how much it would go to your head to be God, you know. That's such a cool idea. And it was, some parts were weak, I guess, of it. You know, even the main character was, and I feel like L, they tried to make him more cool, but the fact that L in the show was so laid back and calculated and cold.
But that's what made him cool.
Yeah, the cold, calculated character that knew what was going on.
He was already like 20 steps ahead, and like you get to a point and it's like, oh, well, I already planned for that.
Because technically L was never really beaten. You know, the main character never actually outsmarted L. L just made a miscalculation sometimes, but he was like technically always ahead, like you said. But I think that because they chose those characters and messed with the story and flipped roles and stuff, it just ruined it. Because, I mean, honestly, what's his name? The main death god.
I don't remember the name of the death god.
Yeah, the main character, his little guy that carried out the Death Note, his commands.
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, William Dafoe.
Excellent choice.
Exactly. I thought it was an amazing version of him, because I liked that part of it. I think they did very good on some authenticity of it, but because they touched the story and they didn't do some of the characters right, it just blew out at the box
So those
office.
are the ones that we say watch at your own risk. We'll put it that way. Ones that we do like, though, from there, you mentioned the H.P. Lovecraft one, Lovecraft Country.
Shinigami. There we go. That's his name. That's the name. The names, generic names for him.
But that one, even though it is an HBO show, I do say it is worth it. But Netflix-wise, and
Ryuk.
I'm
sorry. I love that show.
But the one I recommend the most, as far as anything, like I could probably pick it back up and rewatch it and still find something new or still be entertained by it, and that's going to be Arcane. And I am not even like a League of Legends player. I wanted to play, but like I was already Yes, I know.
I was gonna actually suggest the same thing. I didn't even talk to you about it.
Arcane?
Yeah, I was gonna
Oh,
do
yeah.
like wild card.
Yeah, no, Arcane by far, like, I'm not a League of Legends player. I got into it way too late, like a couple of years after it had come out, and like by that time, if you tried to play it, it was a different type of game, a new type of game, and everyone, you should know how to play this. Like, I don't know how to play this. I'm a Assassin's Creed person. I go through and go stabby stab, okay?
I mean, you can do that with like Zed and stuff too.
Okay, but you have to build the characters. That's the only reason I didn't want to play it, was because I don't want to have to think about building my characters a certain build. I want to get in and play, like Overwatch. I can just pick a character, know this is how it's played, and go.
She likes making excuses. It's very easy to play
You
now
also
because
have to kill things to get the money in.
yeah, that may be more like something to learn more skill wise, but you can literally set up the game to make purchases automatically for you when you base. So you can just sit back and take 30 minutes to make an item build that you look up online, and then it'll do everything automatically for you.
Okay, well, no one ever told me that. That probably would have made it easier. Either way,
It wasn't always there either. I'm definitely not at the beginning.
Yeah, I was about to say it was definitely not there at the beginning. But either way,
We're not talking about the game though. The show.
Well, no, I've never played League of Legends religiously like most people, but I always loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved how they had their own little opening. So what was his name? Lucian?
Oh yeah, you're talking about acting in the game. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lucian was the double gun wielding.
When he came out and he had his own special opening for that, where he's facing both ways and shooting, and the music's playing in the background, I fell in love with League of Legends then. I was like, okay. And then you had the Jinx thing that I saw. That video made me fall in love, and then the samurai guy, Yasuo, every single one of them, I loved the characters. I loved how they looked. So when they said they were making a show, I was like, oh, sweet. Nobody's going to yell at me for watching a TV show. I can watch it and enjoy myself and learn the stories. And so Arcane finally came out, and oh my God, the look, the story, the pace, the music, everything about that show just fits together so well. And it tells the story at such a good pace that you watched, they came out in 3 episodes, right? It was 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
and 4, 5, 6.
And so
by the end of
9.
episode 3, you had, you were on the edge of your seat, just oh my God, I have to see the next one.
You have to go in with the show as well, expecting to stick with it, because episode 1 and 2 are great for story building and character building. You really have to know that to get farther into the show, but it is slow. It is slower, way slower than what it becomes later. But it is worth sticking it out, because right as you get into, like she said, that 3rd episode, especially there to the end, you get all kinds of twists and turns to the story. The characters kind of complete their real story arc of becoming who they're going to be for the rest of the show. It's really well done. And let's talk about the art too. I know that people will probably say there's something else that looks like it, but I have not personally seen anything that looks exactly like this.
So
art.
it's a more somber and darker looking Borderlands to me. It's that cell shading type deal.
Yeah.
But they also softened it more to where it looks like it blends a little bit better. But it is its own unique art.
Well, it's I'm sure there's a lot of CG in it. It's obviously not all hand drawn, but it's really neat to see how it kind of looks hand drawn, but just because of how smooth the motion is and certain things, it's not. But it's really good. I like the art.
The characters,
very unique.
It's the characters if you've played League of Legends, and if you don't know the characters, you're still gonna love the show, because I always knew Jinx, but I did not know, spoilers, that her story, how she started and stuff like that. And so it follows Vi and Pepper. Isn't that her name? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pepper. That doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
But it is, I guess.
Powder. Excuse me. I was gonna say that did sound off.
Right.
Yeah, Powder.
And it shows those two living on the streets, and they have their 2 friends that they do, their father figure that they were raised by because their parents died in a war. All these characters from the game you see, and again, I did not know the full story. I saw them, I know their powers in the game, but past that, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I love how Yasuo does his little spinny attack and stuff like that. That's really neat. But this story that they have played you get to know the characters like you don't ever have to know a thing about League of Legends to pop into Arcane and watch the show. And by the end of it, not only do you know the story of them, but you're depressed because of the story of them and how much they have suffered. What?
Let people watching get that feeling.
It's sad.
She is bad at spoilers. Just kind of like go into the story as if you don't know anything.
I'll bleep this whole part out.
Get through, like I said, episode 2 especially. It just seems kind of like thick and political because it's kind of showing you how the city is set up and the people, their different statuses and how like they interact with each other. So it really gives a feel for the rest of the show. But let's also, my favorite thing from the show, Jinx is by far the best like character development, I would say, in the show. One of the best.
Yeah.
But my favorite is Victor. Victor's story development is slow and gradual and builds, but it is just so good as you get toward the end. I really, really like Victor. They're all good. It's like hard to pick one, but I don't know. I like Victor because his is so believable to me. Like, this is what this character would absolutely do. All the other characters, you have choices and stuff, and so does he, but this one is like, he went down this path not knowing exactly how it would take him, but it was almost laid out before he could make a choice. So it was really well done. But that was my favorite character.
My favorite character, and I know I do this in almost everything that I ever watch, it's Silco.
Yeah.
I
don't,
loved...
Don't say anything else about him.
No, I won't. But Silco had by far, I think, the best character layout for the entire thing.
He is a very good character.
I'm about to say, he's not even a character in the game. I think they put him in a game now that they've shown Arcane. Like, he's in the story of one of the games.
Story, but not
like,
can't play her.
Oh, you definitely can't play him. But, like, I think for a character that was not in the games, the one that they had to make up to help with the story, Silco was my favorite character, and he's the villain. Like, that's not a spoiler. You know that he is the one from the very beginning, that he is the villain in it, and it's just, he's a great villain.
Yeah.
I think he's probably my favorite villain. Like, he beats out any villain. Like, even I'm a huge fan of Loki, not the movie versions really, but the comics. I think he beats out Loki
because he's not a god; he's just a human. That's the beautiful thing.
The beautiful part of it.
He's just such a good character, unique, and what I think every villain should be, believable.
Yeah. Well, even the characters that don't get a lot of like character development, I think Caitlyn had the least amount of character development in the show. Like, you see her...
It's character development, yes, because she stayed pretty much true to what she was from the very beginning.
Right.
But yeah.
But like, so she really didn't have much going on. She was just her the whole time, like, throughout it. Even her, though, like, she has her place in the show, and it's detrimental to the show, I think. It makes, if she was not in there... Yes, in a good way. Like, if she wasn't in there, you wouldn't have the story as the way it was. And I think it's really, like, don't let it throw you off because it's a video game show or because it's an animation. By far, number one on my list for Netflix. If you want to watch something, give it a shot.
I will give a disclaimer. It would be pretty close to PG-13, I would think. I don't know if it's considered PG or PG-13, but I would say, you know, children under a certain age, it is completely up to you what they watch and stuff. But there's
TV-14.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's not only is there scenes of violence and all that stuff, that's kind of obvious for what it would be about. There is some intimate scenes, stuff like that. One pretty close to a full-blown sex scene. You just don't see anything, but you know what's going on. But third is, it is a very taxing psychological aspect too. There's some parts that you may not want your kids to see, characters developing in a very unhealthy way for the sake of the show, because that's what the characters are. They do it accurately, but
it also teaches you a lot about that stuff.
Yeah, and it's not bad. I think it's very good to be, you know, even for parents to think of these things, because children can go through these steps that these people did. But with that disclaimer passed, like I said, 13, 14, TV 13 or 14 it says.
Yeah,
just depends on what you let your kids watch, what they're used to already. But it's minus those things, you know, and past a certain age, it's absolutely a whole family could like that. Like I said, episode 1, 2, maybe a little bit slow for kids to get into. After that,
it's all like just the growth of the characters and getting all of that information out of the way for you, so that 3 and on, It's just character development and just getting on with the story.
Story
hey,
development, yeah.
Here's this version. Second episode, hey, here's this version. Third one, let's put it all together and show you what we've got. And they ended on the third one, and for us, we had to wait a few days before the next one came out, and I was on the edge of the couch. It's like, oh my God, you can't stop it there. I have to know what happens like the rest of the way. And the songs that they make for the show make the show.
Yeah.
And like
very good music.
Sting from The Police, if that's probably neither of those names come up to you for those younger crowds.
Big band, 1980s.
Yeah, 1980s man. Like he sang so many songs like the "I'll Be Watching You" one, and the Roxanne. Everybody knows Roxanne. Roxanne. It was him. So
She tries.
I can sing. I just don't want to. But he has the song at the very end of the series, and when I heard his voice, I was like, that's got to be Sting. And it just threw me for a loop that they would have somebody that big, maybe not be so big anymore, but this is a video game adaptation, you know, having someone like Sting come in here. Well, I mean, the theme song is Imagine Dragons,
Yeah.
and it's on the radio. Like, this show is incredibly good for what it is, and even if you say, well, I don't watch cartoons, you're missing out. It is such a good show. So that's definitely number one on the list of things that you need to watch on there.
Yep.
And I'd say for those of you who don't like animation, I'd say The Witcher is going to be another one.
Yeah. I could say that's much more to the fantasy. That one is definitely adult rated. Be more careful taking your kids into that. Still, yet again, it just depends on what they're used to. But yes, that one is. If you're not big into Game of Thrones, but you like that, Lord of the Rings, you feel, or if you are big into Game of Thrones, either way, this one really scratches the itch of like. Definitely not near as political. It does actually give you the political lay of the land.
Yeah.
But definitely it is one of the best fantasy shows in a long time. A lot of people say that Game of Thrones is up there, and like I said, I didn't get into it as much, but it is really, really good to hold you over if you like that. And you're looking for a show that's kind of in that same vein.
I have seen Game of Thrones and I have seen The Witcher. And my personal taste, I think The Witcher is better because, you've got like these characters and stuff like that in Game of Thrones, but I radiate more with First Off the Bard.
Very D&D feeling, by the way.
Yeah, it's The Witcher books and the games, and so. But actual like The Witcher himself, Geralt, like I like his character. He's much more enjoyable to watch for me, and it's not even because of like the looks and stuff, but the story of him and the Witchers and stuff. I just find that to be more entertaining than like Game of Thrones. But I definitely say that The Witcher is one that you need to give a shot to. It's got all sorts of cool stuff on there, great effects. I think the beginning of it looked a little weird when he was like the black eyes and the white skin, and like the veins.
That's why it is kind of a little bit off-putting and weird, because if you play the games, you know exactly, or at least know the story, you know exactly what that is and what's going on. But when you first see it, it's like kind of off-putting, I guess. It's weird.
And for our own little like wild card, you had Arcane for your wild card there, but Sailor Moon, it's now just a Netflix thing. So they did the movie. Gotta give it to them for the movie, because I love Sailor Moon, and it actually was really, really good to me. Like, they're doing it closer to the books, and I know it wasn't Netflix that paid for it, but they're the ones that bought the rights to be able to show it. So if you have Netflix, you gotta watch the Sailor Moon. If you're a fan of anime, if you're not, like, then of course the movie's not gonna do you any good. But I thought that it was really good, and I can only watch it on Netflix, so then there's that. Castlevania is another really good adaptation for games on there.
Season 1, Season 2, good, kind of good.
I think
Season 3
was great.
was amazing. And then they put all their budget in the last episode fight.
It's true. It's just like the whole time it's that like it's not the smoothest of animation. It's a lot of like that type of thing. But at the very end with that fight, it was like it's like, oh, okay, so all the budget went into this last episode. That's why they look like this. That's cool. That's whatever. But they've already said that they're going to be doing another one. It's not a season that's new. It's a whole new series. Yeah, it's not an offshoot. It's the great grandson of the two from this Castlevania series. So it's going to be the most powerful Belmont of all time, Richter. So I can't wait to see that, because Richter is the Belmont. Like, everybody knows that Belmont. So I can't wait to see them go further into the Castlevania series. But I say, like, if you're into anime and whatnot, it's not a Japanese anime, it's an American anime, but I think it's really good. But otherwise, I cannot say enough about Arcane. The Witcher is definitely one to say yes to on there. They've got other shows on there like Breaking Bad and those that were on TV, and now that's your place to watch them. That one's a good one if you're more so into the like real life type of story. Breaking Bad's an excellent one. The guy that plays he was in Star Wars Mandalorian as the guy with the black blade.
Yes, Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian.
So him, he was in that show as one of the baddies on there. I think season 3 is when you first see him.
One of the main drug lords. He had a cover for a restaurant. Was his cover?
Yeah, El Pollo Loco.
Yeah.
But and those are real. I didn't know that until I started my new position where I was like, they're real. But I think it's like season 3. You see him at the very end, maybe. But season 4, I think, is the big one. I can't remember the seasons. They just go blend with me. I only remember my sweet babies in my shows. But
I'd say wrapping it up, that our favorites, like mentioned, were like Arcane and The Witcher and all that. If out of all these, I would say the number one thing, personally, I would suggest watching first. Stranger Things, but that's an easy pick. That's obvious. You have to. It would personally be The Witcher. I loved Arcane. I was super passionate about it, but it is a quick, it's only 9 episodes currently. 1 season's out. It is a quick and wrench your heart out, great show. Doesn't give you a whole lot to chew on though, because it's 1 season. It's really getting you started, but you can't wait till the next season comes out, possibly in 2023. The Witcher, there's more episodes, and there is, of course, 2 seasons. The Witcher was really good.
I think the first one personally was better for me than the second one.
Second season, yeah.
The second season went deeper into lore.
The story,
stuff,
the lore.
Yeah.
But it realistically kept me on the edge of my seat, and I think it was maybe just the art direction, but man, it was it felt so new and fresh. Even though I knew some of the story that what was happening, it felt so fresh and surprising. Like I'd never seen this world before. Like certain scenes, especially when they were seeing the was it Baba Yaga? What was her name?
Well, that one I think was in the second season.
Yeah, we're not gonna say too much on it, but when they went to the realm of that house and just the way it looked, it was so cool because it felt fresh and like something I'd never seen before. Out of all the fantasy and sci-fi and things I've seen, there was so much good content in that. So I think that one would be what I'd say to go first for. What do you say?
I'm gonna have to go with Arcane.
Yeah.
Honestly, it takes a lot for me to really get into a fandom of things like hardcore. And when I first watched the first 3 episodes, it made me want to draw again. It made me really think about. We have a D&D campaign that's on our other page, Don't Split the Party. It really forced me to think about the whole creativity of things again. That sparked my creativity back to where it was when I first started in high school. So there's nothing like that personally that just scratched that itch but Arcane. So hands down, Arcane is my favorite one.
2 really good shows. There's a lot of them on Netflix.
Check out Haunting on Hill House too if you're into just normal stuff, normal
horror.
Supernatural's a good one on there too.
Yeah, definitely. Haunting on Hill House was I think a pretty good balance.
That one actually had some spots where things happened and I didn't expect it, which I've seen a lot of horror movies in my time. I expect those jumps. Totally.
I think it's good though because it's not trying to be so scary that it's going to make you literally start crapping your pants or Insidious, Nun, Drag Me to Hell or anything like that. This is just really a constant sense of eerie unsafeness and things are wrong, but it did a good job. But anyways, I think that is about it for this episode. Is there anything else we need to add?
July 19th is going to be the next one for us. I can't remember which one that was going to be on.
Surprise.
I want to say that was our Lord of the Rings and the new
Amazon Lord of the Rings.
Game of Thrones show. Putting those two together, saying, what do we think about them? Because I believe...
Ooh, that's a hot topic right now.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's
Both
the
of
next one, because the show comes out, I think, on the 21st for Game of Thrones, the prequel to that one, House of the Dragon. I think it's August that the Lord of the Rings one comes out in, so we're just putting them both together to say, like, what we think and what could go wrong. Because a lot can go wrong, especially with one like Lord of the Rings. That's an older book than the Game of Thrones ones.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a lot of fanboys and fangirls out there for that stuff. Fan people. Do not mess that up. But after that, we're going to Gen Con. We are going to be in Gen Con the weekend after that. So we will have a Tuesday one up that week of Gen Con. But then we will be up there making an extra video for you all to see. And I'm super excited about Gen Con. Like, we're finally getting conventions back, and that one's the biggest one in this area, so I cannot wait to go up there and actually see this after 2 years of not having it, like, in person. So
2 years of not having almost anything.
yeah, so we've got a lot of extra stuff coming up here soon. Keep checking us out. If we have time to do little extra things, we plan on doing extra ones there just for funsies. Definitely check out our Don't Split the Party as Well podcast. You can see the link on our YouTube channel here. So see you guys next time, and enjoy your Netflix watching. Arcane, Witcher,
All
two
the
of big
rest.
ones.
Yeah.
All the rest, but definitely, if your subscription's leaving in 5 days, check those two out. So
Great. That's great shows.
grab some popcorn, enjoy your show, and you all have a good rest of your week. Happy 4th of July!
Fireworks.
No, that's the British one again.
Yeah.
I always do the British one.
No, it's Bridgerton. I swear.
I've become British. Okay, I love you
Definitely
guys.
not.
Bye.
Bye.